Kלים Perik Yud Gimel Mishnah Daled. Magrefa shenitlo kapo. Now, magrefa is a shovel used to clean out the ashes and the coals from an oven or a hearth. Now, the magrefa itself is a one-function instrument, tool. Shenitlo kapo. Kapo is the spade. The main body of the magrefa is removed. Basically, it's got no use at all. You're left just with a handle, and this handle is made out of metal. And it's a pipe. It's a hollow pipe. Now, this hollow pipe can now be used as a bellows for the hearth, for the oven. In other words, you blow into it to stoke up the fire. That bellows is known as a cornus. Says the Mishnah, when the spade, the main body of the magrefa, is missing, shenitla kappa, Tameam epneishi kekurnas divir b'meir. Remeir says, what you've got left is actually useful, got its own use, as a cornus. V'chachamim metarin. The machlokes is like this. When you have a keli which has a particular function, and then it breaks, and now, because it's broken, you can now use it for a different function. The normal rule is, it's not automatically makabel tumah just because you can use it for a different function. You've actually got to be miyached it for that function. There are cases when the second usage is so accepted, everyone uses the kli in its broken state for function number 2, where yichud is not required, because it automatically becomes used on function number 2. That's a principle everybody agrees to. Remain the Chum arguing as to the particular usage of this kli, this oimed ledava acher, oimed letashmish acher. Obviously, in this case, it's not as straightforward as a normal case where it's automatically used. This is a case where maybe some people use it, it can be used, and therefore is used by many people. But because it's not necessarily oimed, they're arguing on the degree of oimed letashmish acher, which is necessary here. And the Chachamim say, because it's not universally accepted for the second function, therefore it's a broken kli and it's toir. Let's move on to another instrument, a magera, a tool known normally as a saw. This is a simple saw, lots of little teeth. At what point is a saw broken? Teeth fall off, and you've got bits of saw where the teeth are together, then you have a gap, and it starts again. What makes a saw broken? Says the Mishnah, Shenitru Shinel Achas Mebenatayim. The teeth are missing one from every tooth. That means you have a tooth gap. If that happens all the way along, then Tahira, it's useless. However, what happens if that happens only in some parts of the saw? In other words, some parts of the saw are complete, some parts are broken. How much length of saw do you need that must be where the teeth are all next to each other, none missing, to call it still an unbroken kli? Says the Mishnah, if you have a length anywhere along the saw of a malay hasit is the distance between the third finger and the second finger. That distance there. If you've got that length of saw unbroken, all the teeth are there, then it doesn't matter if the rest are broken, that's enough to still call it a saw, and it's makabel tumah. The Mishnah carries on. These are also tools. Ma'atzad, there's a machlokes what this is in English. Most people say the English word for this is an adze, spelled A-D-Z-E, or A-D-Z-E, for our American friends. And a ma'atzad, it's a cutting tool. It's shaped at a right angle. The blade is at an angle. It's used for shaping and carving wood. I'm not quite sure how it's used. Ismol is a standard small razor blade. The word used, we know the word ismol from a bris milah. Mafsolis is a plane. You have a chunk of wood, block of wood, and there's a slit in which there is a blade at an angle. And you pass this plane over the wood you want to shave, and it shaves it and smooths it, and that's called a mafsolis. Makdech is an awl. an instrument used for making holes with a pointed edge. Shenifkim, all of these cases, if they're chipped, but not completely broken, Tameim, the item is still Tomei because they can still do the job. Little Chisumon, however, Tahirin. The Chisumon we've had before, the Chisum is the, where the blade is, they have a stronger metal at the edge of the blade to strengthen the blade so that it doesn't chip. If that whole Chisum is missing, then the item is broken and it's Tahir. Mashma, that you need the whole chisum to be missing to be Tahir, and that's backed up by the next Mishnah. The Mishnah carries on. V'kulan shenechlaku lishnaim tameim. Chutz min makdeach, of course, is not shayach with makdeach. Makdeach is a thing with a pointed oil. You can't split it in two. Therefore, the din doesn't apply, because if it does break, then it's just broken. In the case where you have an edge, a length of blade, and it splits, and now you have two instruments with a shorter length of blade, even if one is a roiv and one is a miut, the Mishnah says they're still useful, and therefore that is Tomei. The last word of the Mishnah, rukni bifnei atzmo tahira. We've had this word rukni before, if you remember Perik base Mishnah. Hey, rukni just means a lump. There it was talking about a lump of meat. Now we're talking about the block of wood. The blade's missing, and all you're left with is the block of wood. Well, of course, the block of wood by itself is tar because it's a classic case of a kli eitz she'eino beis kibble. It's got no usage at all. The diak from the Mishnah is really not so much on the block of wood as poshet. It's going mashma that if the plane breaks into two pieces, you have the wood and the blade. It's only the block that is tar, but it sounds like the blade itself is tomei because that is still called a useful instrument. And that's Mishnah Dalet.